The rain doesn't fall normally outside our ER. It slaps the pavement like it's trying to wake the dead. Every time it hits the ambulance bay's aluminum roof, it sounds like a hand knocking from beneath. That night, it had been raining for hours, angry, impatient, endless. I watched it from the intake window, sipping lukewarm coffee that tasted more like burnt hope than caffeine. Everything felt slowed down, blurred at the edges, like the storm was sucking clarity from the world. My name is Dr. Mina Rafiq. I'm 39 years old, and I've worked emergency trauma for nearly 15 years. I've trained myself not to flinch at the sound of bone cracking or the sight of organs exposed, but it's never the blood or screams that stay with me. It's the quiet ones, the patients who don't fight the stretcher, who don't cry out, who just watch you like they already know how this ends. It was around 2:17 a.m. when she arrived, not in an ambulance, not carried in. She walked through the main doors, untouched by the storm outside. She looked about 16, though something in her face suggested more. Her black umbrella was shredded, the fabric barely clinging to the ribs. She clutched it like a lifeline. Her eyes were wide, not with fear, but with some terrible understanding. She didn't speak right away, just stood there dripping nothing onto the floor, staring past me toward the trauma bays, like she was waiting to see someone walk out. "Can I help you?" I asked. She didn't answer. I tried again, more gently. "Are you hurt? Do you need a doctor?" Finally she said, "I'm not supposed to be here yet." I glanced towards security, but the guard on duty was already on the phone, facing away. The girl stepped forward, carefully, like the floor might give way beneath her. She looked around and said, "He'll call first. I'm waiting for the call." That was when the phone behind the nurse's station rang. One sharp, shrill chime. No one else seemed to hear it. I picked up the receiver, but there was only silence on the line. No static, no click, just dead air. I set it down slowly. The girl had turned her back on me and was now staring at the emergency exit doors. "It's not him yet," she said. We checked her vitals, perfectly normal. No wounds, no signs of hypothermia despite her being out in the storm. Her clothes weren't even that wet. I asked her name. She said, "It doesn't matter." I asked where she came from. "Nowhere I can take you." She refused to sit down, refused blankets, food, water. She just stood near the window, looking out into the storm, watching for something or someone. Another call came in. Again, no one on the line. The girl said, "He's close." I noticed something then. Her hands. They weren't trembling, but they were clenched so tightly around the umbrella handle that her knuckles were white. Her fingernails had dug half-moon shapes into her palms. She was holding something back, fear maybe, or something worse. A nurse asked if we should admit her under psychiatric observation. I considered it, but something told me not to. Not yet. I walked back over to her and said, "You said he'd call. Who is he?" She turned to me, slowly. "He told me I could leave if I brought someone else. That's the deal. That's how it works now." I stared at her. "Leave from where?" She smiled, but it was hollow. "You wouldn't understand. You haven't died yet." The third call came at 2:44 a.m. She rushed to the phone this time before anyone else could. She picked it up and held it to her ear for almost a full minute. Then she began to cry. Not sobbing, not loud, just tears rolling down a still face, like someone mourning something they'd already accepted. When she hung up, she said, "It's done." We tried to ask her questions, tried to keep her talking, but she was already pulling away. She dropped the umbrella at my feet. "You'll hear him tonight," she whispered, "and when he speaks, don't answer, no matter what voice he uses." I blinked. She was gone. Just gone. No sign of her in the hallway. No record of her checking in. Security footage showed the doors opening, but never closing. No shadow passed through. I stood there for a long time, umbrella in hand, feeling the chill of her presence still lingering. I went back to the intake window and stared out into the downpour. It hadn't lessened. If anything, it had grown heavier, more deliberate. I brought the umbrella into the break room, hoping maybe someone would recognize it, laugh, say it was a prank or a patient we'd seen before, but no one did. No one remembered her but me. Around 3:30 a.m., Just as the rain began to dull, I went back to the nurse's station. The phone rang again, just once. I didn't answer it. The next morning, I checked every patient log, every emergency intake, every transfer. No girl, no matching description. I asked around. Some staff said they remembered me talking to someone, but no one else saw her clearly. No one spoke to her but me. I took the umbrella home. I don't know why. Maybe I thought I owed her something. It sits by my door now, still damp. The metal rusted more than it should be, like it aged decades in one night. Sometimes I hear the phone ring once, at strange hours. When I pick it up, there's no sound, not even silence, just a hollow absence that feels like it's waiting to be filled. I've stopped answering. The night after she came, a teenage boy was brought in, drowned, found in a storm drain 3 blocks from the hospital. Same hour she vanished. He didn't make it. The coroner said something odd during the report, that his lungs were full of water, but his skin was dry, like he'd died somewhere else and been moved, like he didn't belong in this world when he was found. I still wonder who made the deal, her or him. I remember what she said. He told me I could leave if I brought someone else. I don't know what she escaped from. I don't know who she handed off. I just know I was there to witness it. I was the exchange, the audience. She didn't need saving. She just needed someone to see her walk away. And now every time the phone rings, just once, I hold my breath and wait, because maybe this time it's for me. Bay 6 has a light that flickers no matter how many times. Maintenance says they've fixed it. It pulses overhead like it has a heartbeat of its own, erratic, impatient. When it flickers, the shadows move in ways they shouldn't. I've always hated that room, not because of what it looks like, but because of what it remembers. You can feel it, the way the walls seem to watch you, the way the floor doesn't echo your footsteps quite right. It's as if something is always one step behind. I'm Dr. Leo Masters. I'm 45. Emergency medicine is my life, and it has been for over 20 years. I've trained residents, run trauma codes, pronounced more deaths than I can stomach. I've gotten used to being the last voice people hear before they go. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of what comes back when we force death to let go. He came in just after midnight. EMS said he'd fallen down a flight of stairs at the bus terminal. Mid-30s, no ID, unresponsive, pupils dilated. They didn't see him fall. He was just lying there when they found him. The medics said he looked placed, like someone had arranged him carefully at the foot of the steps. We brought him into Bay 6. I didn't think anything of it at the time. The trauma rooms were full, and he wasn't actively coding, just unconscious. I remember the nurse, Kira, pausing in the doorway and saying, "Do we have to use this one?" I told her we didn't have a choice. We started with the basics: oxygen, lines in, head CT on standby. His vitals were stable, but shallow, no signs of external injury. That was the first strange thing. If you fall like that, you break something, you bleed, but he was pristine, like a mannequin. Then, after about 10 minutes, his heart rate flatlined. No warning, no arrhythmia, just a flat, unwavering line. "Code blue, Bay 6, I called out, and everything moved fast. Compressors rotated in, epinephrine was pushed. We shocked him once, twice, 3 times, and on the 3rd shock, the light above the bed blew out. A hum filled the room, low and vibrating in the back of my teeth. I told myself it was the equipment, maybe the defibrillator, but no one else moved after that. The team was frozen, like they were holding their breath. I looked around. Kira's eyes were wide, staring at the monitor. It's saying no entry. I followed her gaze. That's exactly what the screen showed. Not numbers, not vitals, just those 2 words, in red, pulsing. Then the man gasped, not like someone waking up, but like someone surfacing from the bottom of a lake. His eyes flew open, and they were wrong. Too wide. The irises so dark, they looked like ink pooling in water. He didn't look at me. He looked past me, and he said, "You weren't supposed to bring me back." His voice wasn't right either. Not broken or strained, just hollow. It echoed, in that tiny room, like it had depth it shouldn't. He began to seize. We moved to stabilize him, but nothing responded. His muscles locked up, back arched off the bed, and a sound came out of his mouth that made the med student drop her clipboard and run. It wasn't a scream, it was a groan layered over itself, like 100 voices speaking through one throat. But they weren't saying anything, just mourning, wailing, as if something ancient had been disturbed. The monitor glitched back to normal, flat line, no pulse. Again, I declared time of death. No one argued. We left the room quietly, one by one. No one spoke. The body was prepped for transport, and I moved on to the next patient, trying to pretend it was just another loss. But later, I went back to Bay 6. It was empty. The light above the bed was still out, but the hum was gone. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe to find a rational explanation, a frayed wire, a blown fuse, but the air felt thick, wrong, like breathing underwater. On the bedside monitor, the words "no entry" appeared again. For just a second, I know I saw them. I shut off the lights and left. The next morning, Kira handed in her resignation. She said she couldn't sleep, but she kept hearing that voice at the end of her bed, whispering I wasn't supposed to be here. The med student dropped out of the program 2 weeks later, said she was having recurring nightmares. In all of them, the man's eyes followed her, even when they were closed. We don't use Bay 6 anymore, unless there's no other option. Maintenance says there's nothing wrong with the wiring, but I've heard other staff mention seeing things in there, movement in the corner of their eyes, hearing the monitor beep when no one's inside. One night I stayed late reviewing charts. I passed by Bay 6 and saw the light flicker again, not broken, just blinking, like a signal. I stepped inside and stood there for a full minute, and in the silence I thought I heard something, a voice, low, layered. Next time, stay out. I haven't gone back since. I keep thinking about what he said. You weren't supposed to bring me back. It haunts me. Because we're trained to save, to fight, to resist, letting go. But maybe some people are already claimed by something else. And when we drag them back, we're not saving them, we're stealing. I wonder if that man was even human when we revived him, or if something else had already taken his place. If we opened a door we can't close. I've stopped calling codes in that room. If someone crashes in Bay 6 now, we move them before we try anything. I don't care what protocol says, because I remember what it felt like when his eyes opened. I remember the scream made of voices I couldn't count, and I remember the way the room pulsed with something old and patient. He didn't want revival, he wanted rest, and we stole it. Sometimes in the quiet hours before dawn, I still hear the monitor beeping faintly, just one tone, one long flat sound. But it comes from Bay 6, even when no one's there. There's a silence in the call room that doesn't exist anywhere else in the ER. The trauma bays echo with movement. The waiting area hums with tension, and the hallways whisper with footsteps that never seem to stop. But the call room is different. It's sealed, padded by layers of concrete and sleep deprivation. It's where time stretches out, where you sit in half darkness and try not to think about the people dying just outside the door. It's a silence that feels intentional, like the walls have heard enough and now they're tired of listening. I'm Dr. Priya Chen. I'm 32 years old and I'm in my second year of emergency medicine residency. Most of my life exists in fragments, 10-minute naps, missed calls from family, half-eaten granola bars shoved in lab coat pockets. I've gotten used to the rhythm of chaos, to walking into a room and having no idea what I'll face. But I wasn't ready for what happened that night, because some emergencies don't walk through the front door, some call from places we can't reach. It started just after 3 a.m. I had 20 minutes to rest before my next round. I was curled up on the stiff mattress in the call room, pager off, white noise humming through the vent above. The phone on the small desk rang once, just one sharp, old-fashioned chime. Not the trill of the hospital's internal line. This was something else, an analog ring, like a landline from the 90s. It startled me upright. I answered without thinking. expecting a wrong number or a prank. But on the other end, there was a voice, soft, young, female. Her words were shaky, like she'd been crying for hours. "He's bleeding again," she said. "Please don't hang up." I sat there for a moment, stunned. "I'm sorry, who is this? Are you calling the ER?" There was a pause. Then she said, "You don't recognize my voice?" I asked for her name, her location, anything, but she didn't answer that. She just kept talking, like I was someone she'd known for years. "He doesn't scream anymore," she said. At first it was bad. He'd scream every time it started, but now he just watches the door, waiting for someone to come in. Something about the way she said that made my stomach twist. It wasn't the words, it was the familiarity. Like this wasn't the first time we'd had this conversation. "I need to know where you are," I told her. "Is this a medical emergency? Can you give me an address?" She ignored the question again. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "There's blood on the sheets again, same spot as last time, and it's cold in here, even when the heater's on." I stood up, pacing the small space, trying to piece together what was happening. Was this a delusional patient, a prank, or something else? "You said he's bleeding again," I asked carefully. "Was he seen by a doctor before?" Another pause. "You saw him," she said. "You promised he wouldn't have to come back." I felt my mouth go dry. "I think you have the wrong—" "He knows you forgot him," she interrupted. "But he doesn't blame you. He said you were tired that night. He said it wasn't your fault." I didn't know what to say. My hands were shaking, and the air in the room felt thicker than before. I was sweating, but I was cold, the kind of cold that sinks into your teeth and your bones. I asked again, this time nearly begging, "Who are you?" She exhaled a soft, shuddering breath. "It doesn't matter. We just need to know. Do you still have room for one more?" Then the line went dead. I held the receiver to my ear for a long time, listening to a silence that didn't feel empty. I placed it back on the cradle like I was setting down something dangerous. I ran a trace through the system. Nothing. The call didn't exist. No record of it in the logs, no number displayed, not even a blip on the call board. I asked the night operator, and she looked at me like I was sleep-deprived and hallucinating. The rest of the shift passed in a fog. Every time a trauma came in, I scanned the gurneys for a face I didn't know, a wound that looked too familiar, but no one matched. I tried to forget it, told myself it was stress, fatigue, a brain misfiring under pressure. But then, 3 nights later, I passed the 3rd floor supply closet, the one near the stairwell, and I heard her voice again, coming from inside. "He's bleeding again." I froze. The hallway was empty. The closet light was off, but the voice was unmistakable. I reached for the handle, then stopped. I couldn't explain it, but something told me if I opened that door, I wouldn't find her. I'd find him, and I didn't want to see his eyes. I stepped back, walked away. I didn't sleep that night. The calls kept coming, never more than 1 ring, always from that same phone in the call room. I started unplugging it. Still, it rang, not every night, but enough. Eventually, I stopped answering, but I always sat beside it when it rang, listening, waiting. I combed through patient records, old intakes, discharges, deaths. Nothing matched. No forgotten cases, no missing patients, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had made a promise, that somewhere, in some moment lost between shifts, I told someone I would help, and failed. I thought about switching specialties, leaving the ER, but I couldn't. I still think she might call back. That one night, the phone will ring, and I'll get a chance to make it right. Now, I carry a burner phone in my coat pocket. I keep it off, just in case the real call comes in. I told myself I'd only turn it on if I hear her voice again. I haven't, not yet. But sometimes, when I pass the stairwell or sit alone on break, I swear I feel something vibrate, like a signal trying to push through. Maybe it's nothing, or maybe the emergency isn't over. Maybe it never was, and maybe some of us aren't meant to save everyone. Some of us are just supposed to remember, because not every call is about rescue. Some are just echoes, and some are promises that keep ringing until someone finally picks up. There's a smell in room 14, that nothing can cover up. Not bleach, not antiseptic, not paint. It's not rot or bodily fluids either. It's softer than that, sweeter, like wet leaves left in the sun too long. Most people don't notice it right away, but if you stand in the doorway long enough, it creeps into your throat, into your memory. We stopped assigning patients to room 14 last year, not because of anything official. It's just no one wants to go in there anymore. I'm Dr. Javier Mendez. I'm 50 years old, and I've been the ER director here for the last 11. I've seen the worst nights of this hospital, sat with parents who've lost children, held the hands of dying strangers. I'm good at what I do, practical, grounded, but I don't go near room 14, not since that night, not since her. She was found unconscious on a downtown bench, no pulse, no identification, nothing. EMTs said her body was still warm, but she wasn't breathing. They assumed an overdose, maybe hypothermia. She arrived during a shift change, and somehow no one questioned putting her in room 14. It was available. It always is. I remember walking in to check vitals. The moment I crossed the threshold, the air felt different. Not cold, dense, like walking underwater. My breath caught for a second. The monitors hadn't been set up yet. The room was dim, the blinds shut tight, and she was just lying there, not stiff, not bloated, not lifeless, just motionless, like someone sleeping in a house that wasn't theirs. We ran a full workup. Every test came back blank. No tox screen, no trauma, no history. We contacted local shelters, hospitals, police departments. No matches, not even a missing persons alert. She didn't exist. I ordered her moved for overnight observation. She never made it out of the room. That night, one of the night nurses swore she saw someone standing at the end of the hallway. Tall, unmoving, no face, just a silhouette against the flickering emergency light. She thought it was me. When she called out, it stepped into room 14 and closed the door. When I came in for the morning rounds, I opened the chart outside her room and saw a note that hadn't been there before. Patient revived at 4:17 a.m., awake, responsive, but there was no nurse signature, no initials, just the time. I went in. She was sitting up, eyes open, humming. The hum didn't match anything. No melody, no rhythm, just sound. Her eyes didn't move when I entered. She was looking at the corner of the room, like someone else was there. I greeted her gently, introduced myself. She turned her head slowly and said, "Not this time, not this world." Her voice was calm, clear, but far away. I asked her name. She smiled and said, "That depends on who's remembering me." I checked the chart again. Blank vitals, but the heart monitor showed a steady rhythm. She seemed fine, more than fine. Her skin had color, her posture was perfect, but something was wrong, off. Her presence felt rehearsed. Then she leaned in just a little and asked, "Did you dream of me?" I didn't answer, couldn't. She smiled again. "That's all right, you will." I stepped out of the room, trying to ignore the chill in my spine. I asked the nurse to stay with her while I checked surveillance. That's when things unraveled. There was no footage of her arrival, nothing from the loading bay, no images of her being brought in, just a 2-minute gap in the system, black screen, then room 14 marked as occupied. I called in security, tech support. They said it was a system glitch, happens sometimes. I didn't believe them. The next day, she was gone, just gone. No one saw her leave, no paperwork, no discharge, no security footage, just a neatly folded blanket, a chart with no name, and a small note tucked into the monitor. It read, "You almost remembered, that was it." I checked every inch of the hospital. I filed a report. We pulled weeks of footage, still nothing. The nurse who sat with her that night, she quit, left a single voicemail saying, "I don't want to see the corners anymore." Maintenance was called to room 14 a few days later. The temperature control failed, but when they opened the wall panel, they found hundreds of dead flowers, pressed into the insulation, like someone had been slipping them through from the inside. Roses, lilies, violets, all dried and brittle, all facing inward. We shut the room down after that. No more patients. The smell got worse, not stronger, sharper, more personal. It wasn't until months later that I started dreaming of her. In the dreams, she's always in a different part of the hospital, sitting on the edge of an empty gurney, walking past the nurse's station, humming that same tuneless sound. I try to follow her, but the hallways don't behave in the dream. They stretch, bend, loop back. I always end up outside room 14, and she's always waiting inside. Sometimes I wake up with the scent of flowers on my pillow, the same smell from the room. Sometimes I hear the hum when I'm charting late at night, when everyone else has gone home. I keep the note in my desk drawer. You almost remembered. I've read it 100 times. It doesn't make sense, and yet I feel like it's speaking to something buried deep in me, some memory I've lost or refused to face. What if she was never meant to be found? What if she wasn't a person, but a moment we're all destined to forget, a consequence of looking too closely at what we're not meant to see? I've told no one about this, not in full. They'd say it was stress, sleep deprivation, burnout. Maybe they're right, but I know what I saw. I know what I felt in that room. I don't go near room 14 anymore, but sometimes the door is open, sometimes it's humming, and when it does, I stop whatever I'm doing and hold my breath, because I think one day I won't be able to resist going back in, and I think if I do, I won't come back out. You can't discharge what never checked in, and you can't forget what's been waiting to be remembered. There's a moment between the sliding glass doors and the triage intake desk that most people don't notice. It's less than 5 feet of polished linoleum and automatic lighting, but it feels like a crossing. Some patients pause there, just for a second, like something inside them knows they're about to step into a place that doesn't just patch wounds, but decides things. You can feel it in the way the air shifts, like the room inhales them, like something watches from just behind the reception glass. I'm Dr. Alyssa Reed. I'm 34. I work intake overnight at the ER, which means I'm the first person a lot of people see when their lives are falling apart. Chest pains, overdoses, strokes, gunshots. I've seen it all walk through those doors. Some make it, some don't. I've learned to stay calm, to act fast, and to never ever let what's happening on the outside show on my face. But there are some nights when even the strongest mask slips. Nights when the emergency isn't about what walks in, but what comes first. It started last winter, a quiet stretch between the usual chaos of flu season and the early hours before the bars let out. The hospital lights were dimmed to night mode, and the intake desk was cold beneath my arms. I was reading over an admissions file when I heard the front doors open, just that gentle hiss of air as the sensor caught movement. I looked up. No one was there. I stood, walked over to check, thinking maybe the wind had tripped the sensor, or someone had walked in and veered into the waiting area too fast for me to see. But the lobby was empty, completely. Then I saw the handprint. It was on the inside of the glass, a small pale print. 5 fingers perfectly spaced, with a slight streak where the fingertips had dragged downward, like someone had pressed their hand there just seconds ago. My stomach dropped. The air in the intake bay suddenly felt too still. I turned to check the surveillance monitor. It showed the sliding doors opening and staying open. No one walked in. The timestamp matched exactly what I'd heard, but there was no figure, no shadow, just the doors reacting to something I couldn't see. I called security. They said the footage had already flagged an anomaly, something about a discrepancy in thermal readings. Their words, not mine. The camera showed heat entering, but no body, like a presence without mass. They brushed it off. Equipment glitch, they said. But the handprint remained. I wiped it clean myself. I didn't know why, but I needed it gone. I went back to the desk and tried to focus on my charting. At 3:13 a.m., the doors opened again. This time, I didn't get up. I watched, waited, nothing. But then, just as I reached for my pen, I felt it, breath on my neck, a soft, cold exhale just beneath my ear, like someone leaning in close behind me, about to whisper. I turned around fast. Nothing there. But the glass door had another handprint, smaller than the first, child-sized. I didn't sleep after that shift. I stayed in the break room until sunrise, pretending I had notes to finish, pretending everything was fine. I told no one. What was I supposed to say? That something invisible had walked into the ER? That it left its fingerprints on the glass like a warning? The next night, a man came in, massive heart attack. He collapsed in the triage area. Before he could say his name, we lost him on the table 15 minutes later. Just before he flatlined, he looked up at me and said, "He's already here." No context, no fear, just those words, like a statement of fact. 3 nights later, it happened again. Another patient coded right after stepping through the door. A woman this time. When I held her hand during compressions, she opened her eyes and whispered, "It touched you first, didn't it?" I don't remember responding. I don't even remember how long I stood there after she died. But I do remember the hallway going quiet and the intake door sliding open again, with no one on the other side. After that, the pattern started. Each time the door opened without reason, someone would die. Not always instantly, sometimes hours later, sometimes in another room, but always the same shift, always after the glass slid open for no one. I began marking it down, dates, times, victims. I started seeing connections where I didn't want to, similar injuries, similar facial expressions in their final moments, like recognition, like they were seeing something arrive just before the rest of us could. Then I started seeing the handprints again. They'd vanish within minutes, sometimes appearing on the interior doors too, on windows, on equipment, and always in pairs, one large, one small. Like whoever it was, they weren't alone. I asked the tech team to review the footage again. They showed me stills, frames where the lights flickered at just the right moment. In one of them, you could almost make out a shape, not a person, a distortion, like heat shimmer over pavement, tall, slouched, reaching forward. I asked them to delete it, but I saved a copy to my own drive. I still look at it sometimes, wondering if what I saw was real, wondering if it's still here. Eventually, I started sitting farther back from the intake doors. I left the first greeting to the nurses. I told myself I was busy with documentation, but the truth was, I didn't want to be the first anymore, because I think that's how it works. Whatever it is, it reaches first. It brushes your hand, touches your neck, leaves its print. It doesn't enter without permission, but it waits for someone to open the door. I haven't told anyone all of this, not in full. A few nurses whisper about the handprints. One night, janitor left without finishing his shift after he found the ER bathroom mirror fogged up with a child's palm pressed into the glass. But no one talks openly. No one wants to believe that death doesn't always come with a siren or a scream. Sometimes it just walks through the door. Sometimes it waits outside. Sometimes it chooses someone to greet it first. And sometimes that someone is me. Now, every time the doors hiss open and no one enters, I press my own hand against the glass and count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just long enough to know I'm still here. Just long enough to feel for something touching back, because I think one day it will. And when it does, I don't think it'll leave.